Just try to be kind to your local community and be responsible while you're out there to keep the power behind the statement that we want to make is for a better tomorrow and not for a chaotic present.
Welcome to Casuals of Runeterra, episode 13. I'm your host, Ryan, here with your other host, Hetch.
What's up, Ryan? How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. We do want to start off this episode, so people may be asking, hey, where have you guys been? Even though we're casuals. Yes. And also, we're releasing episode 12 and this episode back-to-back this weekend to try to, fill in the gap for the time we missed, because, there's a lot going on in the world at the moment. And most of the internet was kind of leaving that space open for people's voices to be heard on the topics at hand, focused on the Black Lives Matters movement based on current events. And we want to leave that space open, as well. Even though we're a smaller platform, right? We're not really clouding the airwaves or anything like that. But every little bit helps. And we want to, play the part we can. If you guys haven't noticed by now, you have heard Hetch speak Spanish. He's Cuban American. And I've mentioned it many times in various jokes. I'm Black Canadian, actually, living in the States with a Jamaican background. So, we know a thing or two about what's going on. And that being said, we just want to say, we support the protesting. We want people to get out there, be heard, because it is making a difference, right? The goal is to have something actually happen by the end of this. We don't support the rioting. That's bad. Don't break stuff. Even though the topic today, we'll get into that. But, do it responsibly, be safe, because there are systematic changes that need to be made and people are listening. And hopefully this sticks this time.
Yeah. And even though we are a smaller platform, like the last thing that either of us wanted to do is to try to take advantage of the fact that a lot of bigger voices were quiet to give space for something important, because it is something that we believe in and we would much rather push that forward, because we're casuals and we're fine being some filthy casuals.
Yeah. Keeping it simple.
We want to give that space, and I just want to really reinforce that even though, you're Canadian and I've got a very mixed background as far as just my family heritage, a big thing that I really believe and encourage is that everyone should take a chance to embrace a right given to us by the nation, which is to voice ourselves through protesting. So I add 100% behind the movement, and just try to be kind to your local community and be responsible while you're out there to keep the power behind the statement that we want to make is for a better tomorrow and not for a chaotic present.
Dude, well said. Slow clap.
Slow clap.
That was very well said. So the housekeeping today is the only site we want you to pay attention to is if you go to blacklivesmatters.card. So it's CARRD.co. We'll put it in the show notes. That'll be the only link in the show notes. That's where you'll find a list of various ways you can participate, right? If you can't make it to protest, there's donations on there. If you can't donate, there are petitions on there that you can participate in. If you can't participate in petitions, there's ways for you to share the information as well, because they put it in one localized place that makes it easy for people to do what they can.
Yeah, and there's no point in trying to downplay the importance of the people behind the scenes. You are not a pointless person just because you're not on the front line. Every bit helps.
Yep. So let's get into it. So a little disclaimer we want to say is the timing of this episode, you notice how we've been moving through regions. So this episode, we are talking about Vi and Jinx. And it's important to say that despite what's going on, this is a fictional work. Because we all know Vi is a enforcer that uses, some aggression in situations where she shouldn't. And Jinx is essentially this kind of anarchist type embodiment of mayhem, sort of like the Joker. So we understand that. I want to say, work of fiction, and we're going to talk about the lore as it pertains to that. Not saying that is the right way to be doing things.
And both of these are works of fictions
Yes.
that are focusing on the extremes
Yes.
of their real life counterpart, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And like these are supposed to be for entertainment.
Yes.
Have a casual outlook.
Yes, exactly.
At these stories, and just take them at face value for something to be fun. And because we're definitely going to have fun with it, even though the timing couldn't have been more serendipitous.
So let's get to our main topic. Be safe out there, guys. Wham pow bang. Dude, when we were putting the notes together, we immediately thought of comic books. And I was like, dude, that fits so perfectly because of the comic book with Jinx that you'll get into in your section. But first spell, Suit Up. So Suit Up is I guess one of the newer spells, right? That we got along with the Bilgewater patch. And Suit Up is a 4-cost burst spell that when drawn costs 2 less this round, and it sets an ally to 4/4. So it's not a case where it pumps an ally or it heals. It just sets them to 4/4. That they become that. We've seen these cards in Magic and other card games as well. I think Frogify comes to mind.
Yes, Frogify is definitely, or like any of the Frog effects, is the Magic version of it. It's like whatever it is not that anymore.
Yeah, and it has some cool interactions that are different from just pumping a card, right? So for this one, from the flavor side, it's kind of all the way through from my spell to my follower to my champion, since I'm doing Vi today. So Suit Up is a direct reference to the gauntlets that Zevi makes for Vi. And we'll get to Zevi in a minute. But even the quote here is, "Trouble at the docks, take these and give them my regards." Chief Mechanist Zevi. So Zevi is a chief mechanic. We'll get there. That makes these new gauntlets for Vi when she, turns back up after a while. And it's cool to see that referenced here, because I know for the longest, so going back to League of Legends when Vi came out, people always wondered if she lost her arms, and then those were like a Jax thing from like Mortal Kombat, where she has like mechanical arms to replace them.
Especially when she first came out, that was like the big thing of like how she lose her arms.
Yeah, and Riot took a good bit to tell us that wasn't the case. I don't know what their motive was.
I think they just realized it was like someone must have been like, here's an opportunity for us to really make something fun.
Yeah,
but they did take their sweet time.
They did take their sweet time.
Maybe they were just having fun laughing at us being idiots.
Yeah,
just like, you fools,
we got you. But yeah, so Suit Up is really cool here. I've only seen it played a bit in this meta, usually like a one of, but it's a cool effect to now have as part of the game.
Yeah. There's I'm gonna do a little bit of a plug, because there's an older Mega Mogwai deck tech, because he played up against a Fizz deck that was running Suit Up, and it was a really heavy draw and reshuffle deck, and the idea was just to get Fizz on board and make him a 4/4 while also making him elusive, and then beating the crap out of someone with just Fizz. And it was a really fun looking deck, because it was one of those ones almost like in Magic, the wheel decks, where you have a hand, the hand is gone, and you have a whole new hand.
Yeah.
And it looked like a blast. So there have been a lot more creative people than myself that have made semi-competitive decks with what they're given instead of just hot garbage. But
what spell you got for us?
So I went for one that I think, because I also was trying to like stay on the piece together with the cards that, or the champion I'm talking about today, which is going to be Jinx. And nothing really surmises the whole bit of chaotic genius to me than the card Jury Rig. So it is a 1-mana burst spell. When cast or discarded, summon a Scrap Scuddler. And Scrap Scuddlers are little 1/1 1-mana vanilla creatures.
Yeah.
And this card has been a staple of the discard decks because it's so flexible, and nothing like a jury rig creation
Yeah.
is going to really show the kind of ingenuity and creativity as what these, mad scientist like characters
Yeah.
are. Like, it's just even in the picture, it looks like what used to be a remote just duct taped together, and then all of a sudden it has frog legs. And even on the flavor text, it's like, oh, a creature she once saw scuttling along the rivers of a distant jungle is the source of inspiration. Like it's just like, what, like, people that are so creative and can think on the fly, like, this is the representation of it in card form, and it's just really fun. I think
Yeah.
this one is just a blast, and I've been doing a lot of dumb builds around it, so look forward to another
Nice.
lab coming soon.
Yeah, the discard strategies love this one. So
Oh yeah, the staple, absolute staple.
So then this takes us to our follower section, and I'm starting off with Chief Mechanist Zevi, which I mentioned in Suit Up, the spell. So the Chief Mechanics, I'm just gonna call her Zevi. I'm not gonna say the whole thing. I'm starting to get my. I only have so much water in this cup. I can't.
Okay, so now your challenge is say it 3 times fast.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
We'll say that for the challenge at the end. How about that?
Oh no! What have I done?
You set yourself. You played yourself, boy.
Hit us up with the comments of just the meme. Congratulations, Hedge. You played yourself.
So she's a 6-cost 5/6 with when you draw a card, give it fleeting and create a copy of it. So haven't seen her played much outside of, a one-off in a deck that's kind of random on ladder. But, in her quote, you have, at age 5, she made the world's first multi-frequency sonic knife. While not very practical, she mostly used it to slice sandwiches. It set her on her way to the Warden's elite armaments department, which falls into the whole kind of theme of both of our characters here, where she becomes the person that makes Vi's new arms. We'll talk about her original set and how she got the idea in her section. But that's really cool, right? Like, you have this department of the police force here that deals with building these unique contraptions for them to use, because the villains, if you want to call them that, or the people they have to go after, are also using insane contraptions, right? When we get to Jinx, we'll talk about her weaponry.
About crazy contraptions.
Exactly.
Yeah, definition. I do like that you're pointing out that it shows the other side of the law as far as or the other side of the creativity of Piltover and utilizing it to enforce law, because that wasn't even something that I thought about until you said it. Like, especially if just talking about Heimerdinger, it's kind of like, oh, it's just a city of mad scientists all stuck in their offices.
Exactly.
Not the case.
The cool part about it, so I immediately thought about hackers, right? And how hackers in the real world, usually you have the guys who are trying to do mischief, and you have the ones who either turn or become, on the other side to fight against, their fellow hackers to try to prevent them. And what you have is this increase in knowledge across the board, right? The people doing the bad stuff get better. The people doing the good stuff get better, right? And that's what you start to see, especially because, remember, Piltover and Zahn has a high influx of children, like child geniuses, right? Just because of the nature of the environment. So yeah, it's cool. And notice also in the art that Zevi also has pink hair. So I don't know if there's a loose bit because of Vi's gang. I don't know if it's a case where either she looks up to Vi, or like if she was used to be a part of the gang at one point, because it was a far-reaching thing in Piltover and Zahn. So that's a cool little touch there to bridge the two.
There was a lot more depth into this card than I was even giving it credit for. So you pat yourself on the shoulder. You blew my mind just now.
And you got one for us here, which I can't remember. I can remember the tone of voice. I can't remember the exact quote that she says when you play her. It's like, I know that.
Have you got anything else?
The cough.
and, like, this is the Charles Dickens
Yeah,
follower, the
there you go.
Zonite urchin. Please, sir, can I have some more? Another staple of discard decks all over Runeterra.
Yeah.
It's a 1-mana 2/1. To play me, you must discard one card, and it has Last Breath. Draw a card. And this is a card that I immediately gravitated to when the game first came out, because it reminds me of the Loot Hoarder from Hearthstone, which is one of my favorite cards in Hearthstone. I would put it in aggro decks. I'd put it in control decks. It's like, this card's too good. Which shows how dumb I am. But as far as with the Zonite Urchin, it really showcases kind of the darker side to the story of Piltover and Zon as a region. It shows that not everyone is celebrating Progress Day. There are those that are kind of the downtrodden, the ones that are just trying to make it from day to day. And not only with Zonite's, her voice lines themselves, but when you play a Zonite Urchin on a Jinx board, like, Jinx will even look and go, another one lost to the system, and which just kind of shows this a sense of humanity to the most chaotic character. And every time I play this card, I just kind of hold my head for a second. I'm like, what the hell, Riot? Like, I'm trying to have this is my downtime. This is what I'm doing for fun.
It's hard to calculate lethal with tears in your eyes.
The numbers. It's raining. So this is a really sombering card, and what is otherwise, a very on surface bright and colorful and entertaining story.
Yeah, it's a cool one. And this takes us to our champions now. So we're going to start with Vi. Very popular when she came out. Yeah, Carol. She came out not too long after Jinx, I believe. I can't remember.
She came out first. She came out with the Bilgewater set, so she is.
Oh no! Sorry, I mean in League of Legends.
Oh, in League of Legends.
I'm pretty sure. Yes. You can fact check me on that one. But
I actually don't know off the top of my head.
A very popular character. If you go back through history, as far as just like content for things, characters with big, strong mech arms usually sell. People like them. Like, it doesn't matter what genre it is. It's sort of rooted in anime as well. Because it gives you this sense of, like, a normal person getting access to the superpower. So Vi's no exception to the rule. People liked her. She looked cool. She's like that super edgy look, the pink hair, the shaved side, the tattoo under the eye. Like, come on. No one's going to tell you they don't want that.
Yeah, and it's also like that whole thing of breaking like the Hollywood image of what a female lead should be to, which is, this kind of jumped in the heart of that whole movement, which was already just like, yes, and I'm one of those sick degenerates that's going to look and go, yes, step on me, Vi.
Step on me, Vi. And look at her mock concepts as they were figuring out how she looked like look those up if you haven't, because it's really cool. But let's hop into her story. So her lore is kind of, I would say sort of generic at the beginning, where she troubled childhood, parents believed to be dead at a young age, so she is an orphan, and she's known for you letting her fist do the talking, right? Which leads her to be a gang leader of one of the big gangs in Piltover and Zon. And this is all up until she ends up meeting this bar owner who teaches her, it kind of becomes her sensei, but teaches her more discipline on how she is a good talker. So he's like, get better with using your words. And then he also teaches her how to properly fight, right? So she doesn't hurt herself and hurt others, which there's some reference to how she starts to pull punches in the future when it comes to dealing with altercations. So the big turning point here for us is when she teams up with a gang for a score. Got to get that gold, baby.
Mm-hmm.
And the other Grant gang brings this chem powered golem for some reason, because it's like it's like, dude, it's just a score. What are you doing? You're overdoing it. Like, why did you bring that rocket launcher? But yeah, they bring a chem powered golem. It loses control and tears up the whole place. Right. So they get their score, they get the goal, they get out of there. But there are a lot of bystanders, a lot of innocent people trapped. So Vi takes the gauntlets from the golem, which is now broken down, puts them on her arms, it clamps, and then she's able to use that power to get the rubble out of the way and get those people out safely. And then afterwards, takes those gauntlets, finds the gang, and teaches them a lesson. Let's put it that way. And then after that whole altercation, she disappears. Right, she disappears for a while, and then there's a big altercation with a gang where the police get involved, and she shows back up with a brand new set of gauntlets alongside the sheriff, Caitlin, which we all know now, which we'll talk about in the future when she shows up. But yeah, and she's wearing these prototype Hex Tech gauntlets, which I mentioned were made by Zevi. So that's kind of a cool end to her story as we know it now, because there's this gap in time where nobody knows where she went, how she changed, and her coming back older is like, okay, well, what happened in that time frame, and why are you cool with Caitlin? Because they're two completely different people. And she's almost like referenced as a contractor more than an actual police officer.
Yeah, like she is referenced a good bit. It's kind of like the last resort.
Yes,
and it really shows, as far as like, it makes sense that she would be the last resort because of just this overwhelming force that she can exhibit and ends up exhibiting after she returns with the help of her brand new gauntlets.
Yeah.
And her entire persona embodies that too, with, if you can't get around a wall, break it.
Yeah.
Like,
Go through it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's, punch first, ask questions later.
Exactly.
And so it's always the most excessive resource first, and then we'll come back down.
Yeah. And we got the short story about the investigation that she does, which kind of shows us her growth from when the story was created, or when her bio was created, where there is a gang member who she remembers from her past in the cell. She goes to meet with him, and she's talking to him, or first she starts with violence, and he actually says, "Hey, wait, what's going on here?" And she's like, "What? You tell me what you know." And he's like, "You haven't asked me any questions." And she's like, "Oh yeah, you're right." And she puts him down like nice and neat. And then she actually starts asking him what's going on. He fears about his street rep, right? Because if he tells her what she needs to know and it gets out, whatever. And
nobody likes a rat.
Yeah. And while she's thinking, she's like, well, I can rough him up because he won't tell me what he wants. But she uses that against him to tell him that, hey, regardless, I'm going to tell the streets that you told me without blinking, and that's going to ruin your rep. And he's like, well, they'll kill me. And she's like, exactly. So what do you want to do? So he's like, okay, I'll give you what you need, but please let them know that I, put up a fight at least. So that kind of brain work, that kind of thought process is what we're getting to see her use outside of just pure force.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of that is also kind of connecting back to the beginning too, because those were things that she was taught by her mentor. And the fact that it does reference back to the beginning is like, what happened in that 2-year gap?
Yeah.
I say 2-year gap. I'm like, that's a One Piece reference. Shout out to all my weebs listeling.
Which is now on Netflix, by the way. They have like the first 100-something episodes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. On Netflix, a little drip in the bucket. That's a different podcast. But it really does set the stage for some great story to be told, that we're just kind of sitting back going, gimme.
Yeah.
Give me that story, baby.
So let's hop on the card. So the card is interesting. So while she's a 5 cost 2/4, right? It's kind of on the low end. And then while I'm in play or in hand, grant me +1/+0 when you play another card with a max of +8/+0. And then she levels up when she strikes for 10 or more. So the cool thing about this one is that it's almost like the whole concept of her charging her gauntlets up, right, as she's in your hand, which is, you sacrifice the ability to play her to get her bigger, which is the same way with charging your fist, because you're not swinging or you can't attack in game. You're holding it to get stronger and stronger, but you are vulnerable at that time.
And they match it with the animation because it does have a really nice animation.
Yeah, her animations are really nice. Yeah, it's really cool looking. Very anime. But yeah, so when she does flip, she becomes a 5, costs 10-5. And then when she strikes, she gets Challenger as well. Or she has Challenger the whole time, sorry. And Tough, by the way. So when she does strike a unit while attacking after flipped, she deals 5 to the enemy nexus, regardless of what happened during that fight. So yeah, cool card. Used sparingly. Currently paired a lot with Heimer.
Yeah, and I mean it is worth mentioning that the sparing use is combined with the fact that she did receive a nerf.
Yeah,
because she used to have just 5 health, and this is one of the nerfs that if you play at my wood tier bracket, whenever you've just are doing dumb stuff because you forget that ranked is a thing because you're trying to make fun decks, I don't see a lot of Vi, but at a lot of higher play, Vi it was in a ton of Piltover decks just because of how flexible and how strong she can be, and I think that's why she's seeing much less use, is because most people go, oh well, she got nerfed by, and instead of just seeing what she can do and the potential. But it's an interesting card, and the animations make it worth playing. So if you haven't tried Vi yet, give it a try, because it's satisfying to be playing Vi.
So now let's talk about her worst enemy. So she came back and immediately made a top tier adversary.
All right, and I went and double checked it since we brought it up, because Vi was released first in League, and in a year later we get the reveal of why the Piltover needs such a strong-fisted and such an aggressive law upholder, is because of the anarchist herself, Jinx. And I'm going to go a little off the script here. Shout out to one of my good buddies, a guy named Sean. This is his favorite character in League of Legends. And I asked him if there was anything he wanted me to touch on it, and all that he could say was crazy. And I fully feel that the power of the crazy eyes is one of the most compelling powers on this planet.
You want to talk about shaking up a set of characters? When she came out, it was a case of we always talk about who's the Ryu of the game, right? Like who's on the cover. And everybody knows deep down in their heart is Jinx, but you can't put her on the cover.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean that's why she is included in everything that Riot puts out there, because she is the face of League.
This was I'm gonna make another grandstand too. This was the first music video they released.
Yes.
As well.
I am fully confident, without even fact checking, that this was the first music video. This is one of the times of Riot really showing what they had to give in the advertisement department. And it is the anarchist herself, Jinx, and her story is a lot of fun, and a little quick re-shout out to what we just said. We do not condone wanton violence. So even though I have a weakness for the crazy eyes, just be responsible. Yes. All right. So Jinx is kind of the mascot of the child of Zaun. She is everyone in Zaun remembers her as a young child, remembers her ingenuity and how intelligent she was as far as showing her potential to be a great inventor. And no one quite knows what happened. She was just such a bright and a a bright and gifted child with a promising future, and then something changed. No one knows what changed. No one knows what sparked this, but this little girl became the anarchist that we know,
It's
like night and day,
yeah,
and seemingly
it's
overnight.
such a big change that people are starting to think that there's some kind of spirits involved, uh, a deity or a type of evil spirit that's kind
And
of punishing the city through
yeah.
her.
And Jinx doesn't help to relieve any of these ideas, because now the only thing that people know is Jinx talks to her guns. Which if you look at the flavor text of the card, it is entirely just a quote of her talking to her
Yeah.
rocket launcher,
Yeah.
fish bones. So it's a like night and day difference, and seemingly overnight. But what we do know now is the only thing we can know, which is her effects on the cities of Zon and Piltover. Because suddenly there was a lot of pranks happening, and pranks were only what she called them, because some of them were pranks. It's mentioned that she broke into a very wealthy person's estate and stole some of their animals and released them into a Progress Day parade.
Yeah.
Thus bringing the parade to a stop. Which, yeah, that's kind of a prank. And then there's other ones where she's setting up literal mines
Yeah.
on a bridge.
Terrorism.
That's a war. That's terrorism. that's literally an act of war. So it's all of a sudden there's these pranks popping up, and everyone has their theories. Many people don't even believe that it's Jinx, even though she's saying it's her, because what could a little kid from Zaun have access to actually commit a terrorist attack? And so now she starts becoming more vocal and starts tagging everything. And Runeterra, kind of gives what ends up happening with the tags and the card art of the card Patrol Wardens specifically, which is, the wardens of Piltover running past this poorly drawn graffiti. And Jinx ends up signing her attacks and also calling out the law enforcement, which is making a stir in Piltover, because a lot of people are beginning to question the effect of their wardens, because there's this maniac at large and no one can stop her. And this ends up boiling down into the big score. So go ahead and start playing your Ocean's 11 theme. All right, we'll get the Jinx logo going across it. Jinx will be played by. No, never mind.
Yes,
Hollywood, you come hit me up. All right, you come hit me up. I want producer credits.
Don't give it away for free, man.
Yeah, give nothing for free. All right, but so the big score is that Jinx, in one of her pranks, she tags and she calls out law enforcement, and not just law enforcement, she calls out my favorite thing, which is, hey, pretty in pink, specifically calling out Vi.
Yeah.
Which we're only going to call Vi pretty in pink from now on. Just fair warning, Ryan. And she says she ends up doing the whole calling card and saying, I'm going to attack the Ecliptic Vaults. And this does the whole, since I've ousted myself multiple times as a weeb, Lupin the Third, calling out his next score, going in there and getting the score.
Yeah.
Like Caitlyn, which is the sheriff of Piltover, and Vi, they all get set up around the Ecliptic Vaults, and Jinx pulls it off by smuggling herself in days before. And that ends up being like the turning point of everyone questioning Jinx, whether or not she could actually do this, into, wait, did you see the fighting at the Ecliptic Vaults? There were literal explosions everywhere, and then Jinx was riding a rocket launcher through the sky. What the hell? And that is how her true essence, like this larger than life anarchist, is really born. And I'm really excited because we're definitely going to be diving back into this
Yeah.
story because the implications of Jinx and Vi, they connect with characters like Caitlyn, or how with Heimerdinger we were talking about Ziggs, and Ziggs ends up finding a friend in Jinx because of their love of explosions.
Yeah. And then
Like
we'll get
they,
to because Jinx is that, we talked about the Joker aspect of just the incarnate of mayhem, right? And the thing she pulls off, and with the Joker, there's always an underlining bit of, oh, well, they think he used to be in the military. They think he has a high IQ. They think so he's able to do this because of those base skills. And there is kind of a Batman in League in the form of Jace. But we'll get there in the future. So like you're saying, it's cool how they set Piltover up to be kind of like a high IQ Gotham, right?
yeah. And I mean, I just enjoy the fact that like Runeterra is kind of building it up to really give themselves the Piltover, the launching pad of new characters, because Piltover and Zaun being two different cities, that's a ton of characters to grab from. And you already just mentioned another one in Jace, as far as that could connect to characters that are already in the game. Like that's just exciting. Like this, it holds a lot of excitement. But I gotta rein it in to talk about the card. So Jinx is the original discard aggro card. Ever since beta, she is a 4-mana 4/3 with quick attack. So that already just a really good aggro card. Like that's a good stat line for the mana and the fact to have quick attack, because you want to be swinging when you're playing aggro. You never want to sit back. That's a bad feeling. And her level up is I see you, empty your hand. So discard payoff
she sees
right
you
there.
with her crazy eyes.
See me? Yes. Shoot me.
No. Awaken.
So when she levels up, she becomes a 5/4, and at the beginning of each of your turn, you draw an extra card. So it's already a huge payoff as far as being able to have this discard mechanic, because the weakest part of playing discard is that you're top decking. So being able to top deck an extra card is huge. And her other effect off of her level up is whenever you discard, or the first time in a round you discard your full hand or you empty your hand, you summon a super mega death rocket in hand, and that's fleeting, which is a 2-mana spell. And I am dumb because I hit the wrong button. So the 2-mana spell of deal 4 damage to the enemy nexus and 1 to all other enemies. Like this,
it's pretty strong.
It's a really strong clock for an aggro deck at a low level, like a low mana cost, if you can meet the requirements. It's like Jinx is a really good example of what discard aggro wants to be. And now that a lot of aggro decks got nerfed really heavily since the burn deck got, a heavy nerf for Runeterra. In any other card game, it's not that heavy of a nerf. But now that that's been nerfed, I'm hoping to see a lot more Jinx come back, because she's a really fun character.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's a different type of deck to play.
Yeah.
So it takes us to our fate of the game. And this one's going to be fairly quick. And we've talked about it in the past because we were keeping an eye on how it was going and how players, like prominent players, were taking to the game once it was actually released. And we're starting to see like more tournaments going out, and more pros are spending increasingly more time playing Legends of Runeterra. And some of that is due to the current controversy in the Magic community at the moment. Some people are just getting fed up with Hearthstone as well. And pros are like splitting their time to this point like in half, where they're spending half their time playing Runeterra, half their time in Magic. And I didn't think it would happen so fast, so thank you, Magic, for showing your true colors. Listen, I played for a while, man. I get it. I understand why people are getting tired of it. But yeah, it's cool to see pros coming over. The viewership is going up. You even look at Mogwai. He's like doubled in such a short time frames, people watching him.
Swim has grown a lot too.
Swim is back, and he's like on it's to the point where now he's on an official schedule. Which
Swim of all people,
Swim is now on a schedule, right? That's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if you had anything to mention about that, but I think it's really cool.
My only mention is that you are way too professional. I'm gonna bring this in because what he is trying to say is that your boys over at Casuals of Runeterra, we were right. We were right all along. We told y'all the moment that this game went live and that more people were streaming, it was gonna grow, baby. And all that we didn't foresee was how right we were.
It's hard to be surprised when you just don't miss.
We just don't miss. Casuals of Runeterra. If you ever want to be on the winning side, you pick the casual side.
Did we just get our first T-shirt? The winning side is the casual side.
The winning side is the casual side.
Oh,
all right, I got to make some calls with the Casual Runeterra merch.
Listen, I'm so happy you pumped up your spirits because it's time.
Yeah. Oh no! I played myself again.
Not only did you play yourself, you made your own challenge. All right, so we're both gonna try to say Chief Mechanus Zevi 3 times fast. All right, here I go. Chief Mechanus Zevi, Chief Mechanus Zevi, Chief Mechanus Zevi.
Oh no! How do I follow that? How do I follow that? Oh, this is my nightmare.
Now do it in Spanish.
No. My Spanish is not that good.
Mine wasn't really that fast, but
I don't want to ruin my friendship with Mega Mogwai that doesn't exist. Like with my poor Spanish. Okay. All right. Chief Mechanus Zevis, Chief Mechanus Zevis, Chief Mechanus. Damn it! Damn it! I'm so bad.
I'll give you this. You did try to go faster than I did. I was very focused and I was trying to. I could have probably went faster, but that's pretty good.
I wanted to win. This is about me.
Win.
This is my competitive spirit right now.
Maybe one day we'll have another complicated name to say that we can bring the challenge back up. But so far. 1 point to Ryan.
Damn it.
But as always, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back soon with the next episode.
Love you guys. Love you all.